So we have a special Nas giveaway to our listeners where we will be giving away this movie, Substance Abuse Bear.
Yep, that one right there. Now, if you want a chance to win this, all you have to do is comment below. We will also be having this video on our other platforms such as Instagram and Twitter. Feel free to comment on those videos also to increase your chances to win this movie right here or there or somewhere around here. And you yourself can watch They Try to Make You Go to Rehab Bear.
You mean Snow Globe Bear, right?
Same thing. Tomato, tomato.
Yeah. And of course, you won't just win the movie. You also have the opportunity to come on the show with us and talk about it.
I mean, does a bear ski in the woods?
He does in this movie. Wait, what are you doing, George? Let me shut my curtains. On that note, welcome back to Not a Strong Start, a podcast by filmmakers who talk movies, televisions, and occasionally on display, shutter curtains. I'm your host, not the bees.
I'm not your host. In the name of Zeus's butthole.
And I can suck it on a beach for days.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah,
that's what Jen said. So,
damn right.
In this week's episode, we're gonna do an artist spotlight, an actor spotlight, really, on the Nicolas Cage. We mentioned this guy so many times on this podcast. We're all stoked to talk about it because we're huge Nick Cage fans because he's so polarizing. The aura of Nicolas Cage. So when I say Nicolas Cage, let me ask you guys this. When I say Nicolas Cage, what do you think of? George, we'll start off with you.
It's eccentric, loud, in your face, even when quiet, cannot be shut up.
Nope. Yeah. He's eclectic.
Yeah.
How about you, Jose?
Eccentric, loud, always gonna bring the focus to himself in a scene just because doesn't matter whether it's a serious, an action, a comedic, or whatever scene that he is, Nick Cage is going to Nick Cage. And yeah, you can't ignore Nick Caging.
Yeah.
For better or for worse, he's gonna Nick Cage. And that's the fun part about Nick Cage and why I love it so much is because he is who he is. He's unapologetic. It's you can find a genius to the way that he does things of over the topness, and you can also argue that it's just so unnecessary. But that's what makes it so much fun is you have fun watching those type of performances because he's Nick Cage. And for people that have seen him, which is most people, they understand what that means. And Nick Cage has a pretty cult following. Is that fair to say? He's got a cult following of fans.
Oh yeah.
No, it definitely does. And, I remember hearing in some like past interviews where like some of these aspects of who he is, like they're calculated. He cultivated some of these things to purposely, stand out and have his voice that when you see something from him, you hear him, that's Nick Cage and he's always going to stand out. Even amongst other actors that might be more skilled, he's going to stand out, and it's worked out perfectly, like mission accomplished.
Yeah. And the great thing is that I know we're going to get into his history, but the great thing is that he's a Coppola, right? So he's the nephew of Francis Ford Coppola. He comes from filmmaking royalty, and he made a point of changing his name to not follow that. And his personality is so different and unique that he definitely made his own lane. And I applaud him for even doing that because it's so easy to take the cop out and just use the last name. He didn't do that. And it seems like he didn't really take a lot of handouts from his uncle either. I don't know. I don't know if he did it behind the scenes or anything like that. But ever since he first popped up in Fast Times at Ridgemont High, the man has definitely done his own thing. And I applaud him for what he's done. He's very much out there because it could have gone the road of Charlie Sheen. You know how Charlie Sheen's very much Charlie Sheen and like who he is as a person. there's still something more regal about Nick Cage. He still kind of kept it in line and been able to do these performances, whereas Charlie Sheen kind of went down a different rabbit hole with this and kind of got sucked into the dark side.
It is true. Yeah, because he did the Fast Times, and I think he was still under Coppola for that project.
At that time.
It was after that project where he changed his name to to Nicolas Cage. He didn't want to be a nepo baby, basically. He wanted to stand on his own, and you gotta respect it because he did, like you said, he succeeded at doing that. He set his mind to it, and a lot of people don't even know he's part of the Coppola unless you like a cinephile and you really looked into it. The average viewer will not make that connection between them. So, again, mission accomplished of completely separating himself from the name and standing on his own.
Perfect. So let's get into some of his bio, some of his past.
You mentioned the main thing. So he did have that change the name to go to Cage, which interesting enough because it just came up in an interview. I think a couple of weeks ago. Is he chose his name from a Marvel character from Luke Cage, because he was being asked about being part of the MCU. It would be wouldn't be his first Marvel project, but it'd be the first MCU project in there. And he seemed like he wanted to say, I don't want to do it, but he didn't want to burn that bridge and insult the MCU. So he was trying to be as PC as possible. And he was basically like, I can't say anything bad, basically, I got my name from them, Marvel named me. So that's probably one of his biggest things from his past was that name change, which was a bold move.
I wonder why Cage. Like, is he a huge Luke Cage fan, or is he just really like the sound of it and he just decided to go with it?
He's talked about in past interviews of like how he's a big comic book fan, like he loves comic books, so Superman. But he did like the Nick Cage character. Like he's talked about it before, like how that's during the 70s that was a big comic book for him and he really enjoyed it.
Like you said, he was such a huge Superman fan that he even named his son Kal-El.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's still not the worst celebrity name because what's her name? Gwyneth Paltrow named her child Apple.
Which is still not as bad as
blankets. Michael Jackson's blanket.
Well, that's a nickname technically.
Yeah, but I was why am I blanking on his name? Tesla.
Elon Musk.
Elon Musk. It literally was a symbol. Like it wasn't like EAE something.
It's a math problem, is what it is. That's a math problem that you gotta solve.
Exactly. But getting back to Nicolas Cage, I mean, we want to kind of spotlight overall, so we don't dive too deep into the details of his background. But the first major project that he did under Cage that kind of got him started was Valley Girl, which I've never seen Valley Girl, but I think through all the projects that we all remember, the two that he actually got nominated for was Leaving Las Vegas and Adaptation. Which is funny. The two roles that he got nominated for were roles where he was playing writers in it. That was like the link between them. Have you guys seen both of those or either of them?
Yeah, he actually won the Oscar for one of them.
Yeah,
Leaving Las Vegas. That's the one he won for, I believe.
Yeah. Adaptation was good, man. I liked it. He did a very good job because when he plays characters that are eccentric, that's right in his wheelhouse. You know what I mean? And when we've talked about you take the good or you take the bad of Nick Cage, is when we talk about sometimes the bad is when he may play a character that's more straight, but he plays in such an eccentric way that the scene doesn't necessarily call for it. And the other characters they can't really bounce off of it correctly because the scene doesn't call for it. Right, like he just kind of out there shouting and doing his thing that sometimes it doesn't require it. So we just sit back, and that's just the magic of Nick Cage, because we just sit back and we laugh, knowing that that's not what it calls for. So it just becomes a comedy, essentially, is what it does, and that's the beauty of Nick Cage.
Yeah, it's the middle of a funeral scene, and he's like, "What?"
That's funny. So I was going through some of his filmography this whole past week to prep for this, and as you guys probably know, my wife isn't a huge cinephile like the rest of us. So getting her to watch a bunch of films is not an easy task.
Yeah.
But with this one, she was fully on board.
Why? What was it about Nick Cage that got her?
I think with her, she doesn't mind a great film, but if there's can be a possibility of a bad moment, she's all for it.
Oh, that's
and
Nick
so
Cage.
with him, she knows there's that chance.
Yeah.
And so like we're watching parts from like Family Man, which is a
Mhm.
very serious. It's a comedy love story thing, but it's serious.
Yeah.
And it's that scene where like Don Cheadle has a gun to his head and he's like, "You want to die?" And Nick Cage is just looking at him, and she's like, I know he's not going to do anything, but I feel like you can't tell because the look in his eyes is like he's going to explode at any moment. Like every time we're watching a scene with him in any movie, I'm waiting for him to explode.
Yeah.
Even though he's not going to.
Yeah. No, yeah, like Marie had me on the Late to the Game on her episode. We watched Moonstruck with the young Nick Cage, and he's there with the scene with Cher, and she was asking about like he had like a wooden hand or whatever, and they're having the scene, and he starts yelling and doing this thing where Cher, you just kind of see her like, okay, the scene didn't call for him to be so ravenous, but he is, and I just started laughing out loud, knowing that this was supposed to be like a somewhat dramatic scene, but like I just can't help but laugh, man.
The same thing happened. So he won the award for Leaving Las Vegas. And that is not a comedy at all. It's a very serious, a downer movie, very depressing movie. But he won the award because his performance fit, because his character was a raging alcoholic who would just lose control. So, he just had a Nick Cage it the whole time. But in some of those scenes, I found myself laughing, and I'm like, this isn't a laughing moment, but it's like he's Cajun up right now. In that setting of such a like depressing movie. So I definitely hear you what you're saying.
He's like the actor's version of like a Steven Seagal, right? Because remember when you watch Steven Seagal action movies, a lot of the fight scenes are stupid and ridiculous, and you see him doing like the cheap little neck snap. It's ridiculous. With Nick Cage, it's like the acting version of that, where you kind of watch it. It's like you know what you're getting into, And I know we're gonna get into his movies, but that's what made The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent so like I need to watch this movie, is because it's calling for that. You're playing a version of yourself that's a sort of a parodied version of yourself, and it was like, dude, if anyone was made to play Nick Cage, it's Nick Cage. About a movie playing Nick Cage. Like, we needed to see this.
Well, and that's like he's not an actor. He's a thespian.
There you go. There you go. There you go. You're right. I'm sorry, Nick Cage.
Yeah. Before we get into like our individual favorite movie of his, I want to throw my opinion out there. Let me guys know if you agree. I feel like 95 to 2000 was like peak Nick Cage. Yeah, period.
It was the age of Cage, you could say.
Yeah. That 5-year window, what did we get? We had the one he got the award for, Leaving Las Vegas, but that's when we got like The Rock, Con Air, Face Off, Snake Eyes, Gone in 60 Seconds. I think the one you mentioned, Family Guy, I think Family Man came out around that same time.
Yeah. That one and 8mm.
City of Angels.
Yeah.
Like that's all within that 5-year span. Like I feel we got peak Nick Cage. So for anyone listening that wants to see peak Nick Cage, watch anything within that 5-year window. And then I feel probably over the last maybe 3, 4, maybe even 5 years, we're kind of getting like a second resurgence of him, where he's been getting a lot more roles that are suited for his eccentricness, with like Mandy and Pig and his movie, the Nick Cage movie overall. But what are you guys' thoughts on that?
Oh, 100% accurate. Yeah. I mean, during that time, I think that was when we were leaving elementary school to high school. And I know for all of us, like that when we first met each other, we kind of all bonded over films like that. I think at one point, wasn't one of our friends like that was like his email or handle was like Jonathan Cage or something like that, or Nick Travolta. I don't know, but it was because like John Travolta and Nicolas Cage were having like this neck and neck like resurgence together.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. You go ahead then.
Oh no, I was gonna say, yeah, no, absolutely. And it's good for somebody like Nick Cage because he has such weird real life things that he's gone through in his own life. Like who he is on screen is just as eccentric as he is off screen. And that's the beauty of Nick Cage, because even though he's out there and he has a an ego to him, he's never been very douchey where he comes off as unlikable. You know what I mean? Like a lot of actors can have that very ego self about themselves, like a Charlie Sheen, where it turns you off. There's something charismatic about Nick Cage that he's still like an underdog that you just want to see him succeed. Like I love that he makes these extravagant purchases and he does all these things because it's like he's living a life of like, man, like I'm envious of that. I wish I was Nick Cage. Like you're like the everyman eccentric thespian for us, man. And that's why I think we can connect with him so well. And he looks like an everyday schlubby guy. Like he's not like this super handsome man that seems almost like unattainable for people like us that like, well, we can't look like him. He looks like a normal guy, but he's just so out there and he's just so confident in himself and who he is. It's inspiring in its own way, man. It's Nick effing Cage.
Yeah, he knows exactly who he is. I think he just, again, I saw an interview I think from like a week or two ago where they were asking about the Marvel thing, and he ended it with like, it was something along the lines, I don't need to be part of Marvel. I'm Nick Cage. And it's like, yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So
did
good,
you guys
man.
ever see that? Like, there's the actors roundtables, and there's one that he was a part of, and I want to say in that one he brought up the whole thing with the Ghost Rider and the body, and like how there's always that myth of like it was CGI abs and everything. And so he talks about, he's like, I really worked out for that. It's like I busted my butt to look like that, and no one believes that I did it. It's like, so I'm never doing it again.
I believe him. I didn't believe it.
I did. I believed it. Want to know why I believed it? Think
Why?
back of like from that period of Con Air and Face Off and all that stuff. He has a
Yeah.
good body. The dude's ripped in all those films. It's like he's watch Con Air again. Watch Con Air.
I've seen Con Air many times, George.
The dude's
he's a
not
little
fat.
bit.
He's not fat.
No, he's definitely not fat. It's not fat.
Cut his head off, and the guy got a good body.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So it's just like, come on, man. The Cage had it going on.
Yeah, he did, man. He did.
I can believe it. I think for Reinfeldt, supposedly, you know, he like shaved down his teeth so he can fit the 3D printed like fangs, supposedly. So he commits to the role.
He absolutely does, man. So if I was to say your funniest Nick Cage moment in a movie, which one do you think of that you just automatically crack up? Your favorite memorable funny scene that you think of when you think Nick Cage and you automatically chuckle.
Okay. Which he says like 3 to 4 times in Face Off.
Yeah. Yes, he does.
I think the first thing that popped in my head, and this actually is Face Off 2, is the church scene where he's like dressed as a priest and they're like singing and he's literally just there as a priest like woo, dancing, smacking asses, and no one's saying anything. Like, this is the priest that's like doing this.
For me, it's Wicker Man when he's in the bear suit and he just runs up and just punches that whole person. Why? When would I ever see that Nick Cage in a bee outfit just running up and just cold cocking somebody right off the stage?
I will say, to piggyback off of that, there's another scene where he like, I want to say he kicks Lily Sobieski in the face. It's so random. And I remember being in the theater and laughing my butt off.
It's unnecessary.
Yeah,
it's unnecessary. It has no business.
He could have pushed her, but he's kicked her in the face. I was like, what?
What? Yes. That's what I mean. It's that like golden era that we were talking about. Like even in The Rock is like an amazing movie from him, but there's like little choices, like little nuances that he chooses to deliver his yelling part that like the scene doesn't even require it. Like, I just love it, man. The man is a walking comedy. Like I love it. I love it. So, okay, let's get into a favorite movie then. What's your all-time Nicolas Cage favorite movie?
Okay, good. I'm glad I'm getting got it off because I think it's obvious right now which one I'm going to say. It's going to be Face Off. Face Off is my favorite, but it's like everyone's favorite. It's almost unfair. But I rewatch this film probably once a year, I'd say.
Okay.
And I can't say about other Nick Cage films,
Yeah.
possibly.
The peaches, like that was completely improv, right? Like it's just this whole little scene of
Yeah,
that
and he
in his
sticks his tongue
dialogue.
out.
It's like it's one of those ones where you're like kind of uncomfortable watching it, or at
Yeah.
least I assume a female would be watching that. Like
Yes,
it's a
I
little
watched it the other night.
uncomfortable.
Jen looked at me and she's like, "Oh, put his tongue back in his mouth, please." She's like,
Exactly.
Yeah, wait, what are you, the Dalai Lama? Like, put that tongue back away.
What is it about Face Off? What's the magic of Face Off that gets you?
I liked all his decisions. Like I was talking about it with my wife, and it's like there's so many moments where you're watching. It's like because Nicolas Cage and John Travolta play the same character, and then they switch roles. And in theory, certain mannerisms should have carried over to the other character, right? So like when we first see Nick Cage as Castor Troy,
Yeah.
you know, he's doing all these like swirls and stuff and flips and stuff with his guns and everything. And so in theory, when John Travolta becomes Castor Troy, you figure he would have done the same thing. No, Nick
Logic
Cage
would
now,
think that.
yeah, now as Archer, he's over here, he's still doing little flips and everything. And it's just like, why are you flipping for no reason? No one's around you, no one's shooting at you, and you just did a flip on the ground to shoot all cool and stuff. Like there are times where I feel like, because we talked about this with Will Smith, where like he'll just randomly jump over something in Bad Boys, and it's like, why'd you just do that? And it's like, did he watch Nicolas Cage and think like, that's who I gotta be? That's the guy. He knows what he's doing.
He gets it. He gets
Yeah.
it.
You know, it's like all these little choices. It's like that has to be him. There's no way a director told him to do that. John Woo's not telling him to do those things right now.
And like
John
Woo
Woo's
was
not
like
telling him to stop either.
No,
that's what I'm saying. I'm like, John Woo is such the perfect director for that because he allows eccentricness and like it was just a perfect blend of that, man. It's so well done. It's such a fun movie to go back to and rewatch so many times.
Yeah. Despite some of the things you see that are wrong, like the strings.
Yes, and that's what makes it awesome, man, because that's why we said this is our favorite Nicolas Cage movie. We never said this was the best quality content of Nick Cage. We didn't say that. What's your favorite Nicolas Cage movie?
It could be the best quality content.
One could argue that. One could. I don't know how many would agree, but one could argue that. But that's what makes it so fun, and that's what gives it a quirky little personality of a movie, because to me, that's what makes such great movies is it feels personal, and that movie feels personal to us. It's like it's not trying to be something that it's not. They know it's sloppy. They know it's ridiculous. You remove a face, but okay, bone structures, voices, like, you know, they try to quickly give you an explanation why, but like it sounds like BS. Like, yeah, sure, whatever. Let's just go with it. Now it's just John Travolta and Nick Cage just trying to act like the other character, and this is what we're getting.
Mine, it's actually, I'm just going to piggyback off of George because mine is exactly the same movie. It's like when you say Nick Cage, that's the first movie that pops in my head. I'm like, it has to be my favorite if it's the first one that's popping in my head. But it's so out there, so over the top that you can't help but have fun watching it through all this cheesiness. And like you mentioned, the strings, the very, very obvious like body doubles, like with the boat, when like the boat's flipping over, it's like that. Yes. Wait, when did he grow hair? Like that was not him. So it's got a way. But then there's also, again, the church scene, the peach line and that peach scene, the golden guns. Like there's so many little like memorable, iconic moments throughout the whole thing. And I feel it was the golden gun. I felt it was the perfect pairing for that movie and what that movie was. It was Nicolas Cage, because Travolta is also one that's over the top, especially in his most entertaining roles. You know, he always has that like quirkiness to him. So now you have two over the top actors that they're at their best when they're over the top and they're quirky and they're eccentric, going against each other and then switching roles where they can still try to be each other, but they're both just being themselves as the other person, like George was explaining. So I felt that pairing together was very entertaining. I know they talked about for years doing a face-off too. I don't know how that was going to be plausible, but I would be lying if I didn't say I wanted them to do it.
I wanted them
somehow.
Yes,
please.
I do. Yes, give it to me.
Yeah. But yeah, there's other Nick Cage movies that I enjoy. Like, I really like Con Air from that time frame. I like The Rock. But if I had to just isolate one, it's going to be Face Off.
Okay, so I'll go with a different choice, right? Because we already talked about Face Off, and Face Off is such a fun movie. There are a few. I really thought about going Con Air, and I really almost gave it to The Rock. But I'm actually going to go with a different movie that we haven't talked about yet, Raising Arizona. I don't know if you guys have seen Raising Arizona.
Yeah.
Done by the Coen brothers. Nick Cage was so perfectly casted as that character, which is supposed to be an idiotic, redneck, middle of nowhere America, where the idea is that they kidnap a rich baby and they try to, they essentially kidnap a rich baby, but he's supposed to be an idiot. And he plays it so well because it's the certain facial expressions that he makes that just sells it. And there's this one really hilarious scene where the cops are chasing him and he's running and he's trying to steal diapers and he's running through a grocery store and he's grabbing it. And it's like a lot of like one shots that you see where like they're shooting and he's like holding it up. The whole scene is so comedy that it combines comedic with action. But the movie's done so well, and you have a John Goodman that's in it that's so good in this movie. The movie's great, man. I love it. It's Coen brothers right around the time where they did The Big Lebowski, so like they were on their A game with this. Raising Arizona is good. If you haven't seen it in a while, rewatch it, man. It's very, very well made, and it's one of those ones where, Face Off. We have the Face Off and the Connors that are so ridiculous that you laugh and it's funny, but you can't say that they're great technically made movies. Raising Arizona it's made very, very well, and like I said, and you have the genius of the Coen brothers and their cinematography and all that stuff that just it made it good, man. And he's so well casted for this role, probably like right there with Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. The way that he was so good, because I want to say that movie too, but it's so young and fresh. But Pedro Pascal in that movie, man, he stole the movie from Nick Cage, in my opinion. He's so good in that movie, but they had such amazing chemistry that it was like a face-off, like we talk about with like Travolta and Nick Cage. Their chemistry was so good. That's how Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent is. So there's so many Nick Cage movies, man. Is there any other quick shout-outs you want to give before we go on to our next topic?
I mean, Gone in 60 Seconds. That's one that I watched multiple times in there. That had a good cast. Yeah, a good cast outside of Nick Cage.
Yes.
Throughout it, all of that. It's like a heist movie, so you had that element there. Nick Cage got to be Nick Cage throughout it. It's not as ridiculous as like The Rock and Face Off were, but still highly entertaining.
Yeah. Wicker Man. So the story itself, the movie itself is cool. It's okay, but it has such outlandish scenes that it's so memorable to me. And I love going back to Wicker Man sometimes because it's so ridiculous. It needed Nicolas Cage to be as good as it was, because I felt like if it had a lesser actor, Wicker Man would not have been nearly as good of a movie.
Yeah, not as good as the original. It wouldn't have beaten the Christopher Lee version.
Yeah.
Because the Christopher Lee version is still a good movie for horror to watch. You're not watching the remake with Nicolas Cage because it's a good horror movie.
No, you're watching it because the comedic stuff for it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. How about you, George? Any other?
Oh. Wait, I got one more shout out. This is a newer one, but what is it? Willy's Wonderland.
That's what I was gonna say. You stole it from me.
Haha, that's what you get for taking my name and Face Off. But Willy's Wonderland, that was just such a fun movie, and if I recall correctly, he doesn't even say a word.
He doesn't say anything.
He has a whole dance sequence in it while he's fighting these animatronic creatures that are coming after him, and now one word was uttered by Nick Cage the entire thing, and I was there for every moment of it.
Man, so good. That's kind of like Mandy. We got to give a shout out to Mandy too.
Yeah.
The directing in it is so stylistic and it fit him so well. It was like he was well casted in that, man. Like when
Chuck's
Nick Cage,
favorite.
Yeah, it is. When Nick Cage is in a good movie, he shines and he looks genius. You know what I'm saying? Like if it's the right tailored movie, and that's why when you said, Jose, that it seems like we're having this new resurgence of Nick Cage, the age of Cage, the new one. They're tailoring these projects around him, and that's the sweet spot with Nick Cage. I want to see more of him because the unbearable weight of massive talent, he was so good in that, man. When he's sitting there and he's singing the birthday song to his daughter, it's like cringe. You're sitting there like, oh, like you're embarrassed for him, and everybody's just watching him. Even when he's there giving his audition to the producer, remember in the very beginning of the movie, he was like, you really don't have to. No. And he starts going into it and giving his performance. You're thinking, don't do it, dude. You're gonna ruin it. And the guy's just like, wow, oh my God, wow, and he's blown away.
Old Cage and new Cage too.
Yes, man. Oh my God. Yeah. Oh my God.
George, what were you gonna say about Willy's Wonderland?
I mean, besides everything that you said already, honestly, like I saw it recently, and it's amazing how you have a movie that has really no direction. We have no idea where he's from. We have no idea why he is so like badass. Like it almost seems like he's supposed to be there to kill this possess animatronics, but at the same time, like he takes breaks. He makes sure to take his 15-minute break on time every time to play this pinball machine.
That hits OSHA regulations. Yeah. He's compliant.
Like I'm waiting at the end of this movie to find out, like, so what's his deal? Was he one of the kids that survived? Was he a parent that lost one of his kids? He's just a guy.
It's Nick Cage.
He's just a guy. That's it.
He's just Cage.
Just happened to be in town.
Yeah. I love it's the one movie where, like, you know, movies with action and badassery, there's usually the "come with me if you want to live" kind of line.
Mm-hmm.
He never says that because he doesn't speak, but he has a look at the end of the movie where he looks at the girl and the look says, "Come with me if you want to live," and she looks at him back like okay, and she just gets in his car and leaves with him, like it's all normal, like
just a Wednesday.
Yeah, it's like okay.
Yeah,
I'm all for it.
Let's do fun facts of Nick Cage. I have a good handful, but go ahead. Who wants to start us off?
Well, I want to go off of what Jose was saying earlier because you kind of talked about like the early point of his career and then the high point and the second high point. I think the most interesting thing about his career is that he only has had 1 year where he did not have a movie in the theaters. So since 1982 or 81 to right now, he's always had a movie in the theaters, at least one.
Oh,
never mind many
theaters. In the theaters, so not just released.
Exactly. So in 1985, that was the only year where he did not have a movie released in theaters.
That's impressive.
Besides that, he always has at least one film.
Man, that is impressive. Like, I don't know anyone else that has done that. That is truly impressive. Wow.
So when I was in the LA a few weeks ago with George, we were on the Fire Stick and we were just looking through all these movies on the app to try to find something to watch. And we started making the game of like, let's see how many Nicolas Cage movies we run into. And I think we even mentioned like, oh, this could be a drinking game. And then we realized very quickly this should not be a drinking game because someone's getting their stomach pumped. And we were only in like page 4 at that point, the Nicolas Cage movie. So I did not know that, but I'm not surprised, to be honest.
No, yeah.
It's a fun fact that I wasn't aware of, but you know, him and Johnny Depp were actually neighbors in the mid 80s. I think it was like 83, 84. Johnny Depp was doing the rock band thing. He was not acting or anything. And it was actually Nicolas Cage like insistence and introducing him to his agent that got Johnny Depp supposedly into acting. When he was going through his own financial stuff, got him into acting. So Nicolas Cage might be part of the reason that we have Johnny Depp.
Here's one. Nicolas Cage owned a cat, and the cat kept raiding his fridge. So he decided that not that he should, but he must do shrooms with the cat together, and it resulted in an hours-long shared trip as a way to combat the cat raiding his fridge. So he did shrooms with his cat. This is why I love Nicolas Cage. That's a movie like that. That's a movie plot, but it isn't.
Forget that movie. Cage. Keanu, make this. This is the movie we need to see with the cat.
This is the movie we need to see. So, how do you go from that logic? I don't know. But then he immediately goes to the cat, and does shrooms with a cat.
What I gotta know, what decade was this? Is this 80s Nick Cage, 90s Nick Cage?
It had to have been there's no way it's current, so it had to have been like 90s,
80s or 90s, right? Yeah,
probably probably 90s or maybe even 2000s. Remember, he kind of was doing weird stuff around the 2000s. Maybe it was around that era.
Yeah, so probably like pre-PETA extremist.
Yes, yes, exactly.
I guess a little thing. A lot of actors have worked with Nicolas Cage. Talk about his acting style. Many say it's overacting, but apparently Ethan Hawke had stated with talking with him that it's not overacting, it's called mega acting.
Yes, it is. Yeah, it is.
Which I have to agree.
Yes, it is.
It's what a thespian does.
Damn right.
I read a story how he actually outbid Leonardo DiCaprio for a T-Rex skull that cost $276,000. But then it turned out the T-Rex skull was actually stolen, and he had to return it. I forgot what government it was, but it was stolen from somewhere, and they approached him, and he actually had to return the skull that he paid almost $300K for, outbidding Leonardo DiCaprio.
Jesus, dude, I would if I was rich, I would totally own a T-Rex skull. Like, that sounds like a good purchase to me.
Yeah.
Man, I totally do that. Okay, here's a hilarious one. Nick Cage chooses his diet based on animals' mating habits. Yeah, he doesn't eat bacon. He doesn't eat pork based off of pigs having dirty fornication, but he does eat fish and birds because they mate respectfully.
Okay.
Oh, so Nick Cage is probably a missionary guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if they have clean sex, then it's clean food, and that's how he eats it. So,
okay.
So this is why he was cast for the movie Pig, then.
Exactly, because he didn't eat them.
Yeah.
Yep.
That is such a Nick Cage trivia, isn't it? Tidbit. When I read that, I was like, I gotta share this.
I have one more on here. So Nick Cage, he bought the Lalaurie Mansion, which is considered the most haunted mansion in the world. He bought it because he wanted to write a horror novel. So he felt buying the most haunted mansion in the world might inspire him to write this horror novel. Unfortunately, he lost the house, and the novel was never written at all. But the intention was there to start. You know, you can see the thought process there.
The Shining.
Can't write a horror novel without actual real, like, you know, ghosts and demons. Yeah.
Yeah. He wanted The Shining, man. God, great. That's awesome. I could give you the story about how he was bailed out of jail by Dog the Bounty Hunter in New Orleans, but I won't. I have a better one. He became obsessed with trying to find the Holy Grail. So he traveled the world and concluded it was just a metaphor. It never really existed.
National Treasure Part 3?
Hence where the story came from.
Wait, I do remember another one. There was this supposedly story that he woke up one morning in the middle of the night, and there was a guy in front of his bed watching him sleep, eating an ice pop. And of course, Nicolas Cage ended up not pressing charges, so the guy was like good to go. But that was his wake up call in the middle of the night in Nick Cage, and he was just like, "Nah, I'm not gonna press charges. You're good." But just woke up and guy's at the foot of his bed eating like ice cream. Like,
oh my god! I wonder if he took Nick Cage's ice cream, or did the guy bring the ice cream in?
That's a good question.
Pedro Pascal always brings his own ice cream.
There you go. Nice. All right, so let's get into the next topic. Let's recast him in another role. What movie would you guys want to see him in? Let's go.
Oh, man.
George.
There's so many. All right. So first one we're gonna go with is, we talked about him going back to the MCU. We are looking for a new Wolverine. Why not Nicolas Cage? So it stays that way. He's still Wolverine.
Hugh Jackman.
Yeah. So instead of Hugh Jackman, we had got Nicolas Cage.
He would be phenomenal in Deadpool 3. If he was Wolverine and he was with that thing,
right?
That'd be good. Okay.
The reason I thought of this is because think of like the moments of Wolverine, and like there's so much screaming that Hugh Jackman has to do, and it's good screaming. It's guttural, it's visceral, But now imagine Nick Cage screaming
man,
at a higher pitch.
Yeah, I can't wait to see him in that wig because Nick Cage is notorious for the wigs that he wears.
The hair. Oh my god,
like
the hair.
Con Air, man. Con Air. The hair in Con Air is the best. Okay. How about you?
I felt again, I wanted to play to Nick Cage's strength. So I'm like, I want to throw him in something that's gonna be just as over the top, where he can absolutely let loose and might still seem tame compared to the project itself. I'm gonna throw him into Fast and the Furious as Brixton Lore, Idris Elba's character in Hobbs and Shobbs. So I'm gonna throw him in that universe. So I mean, of course, they'll have to change the Black Superman line, but he could be Superman again.
Yeah. Do they? I don't know. Keep it. Why not?
Nick Cage would have it.
Yeah.
Nick Cage is the dude playing the other dude.
Yeah.
But I'll throw him in there. I feel he would fit perfectly in that Fast and the Furious thing and will not even stand out in his highest level because everything else is so ridiculous.
Got it. So
he'd be at home.
Yeah. I don't even know if I saw Hobbs and Shaw, man, to be honest with you. So I can't even comment on it. I know he's ridiculous and he's over the top. And as soon as you said Fast and the Furious franchise, you could even thrown him in Fast and the Furious, period, in one of those characters, and he would have been great in it. Him as Dom would have been freaking hilarious, man. I would have been on top of that all day, man. Give me him as Vin Diesel, man. That'd be funny.
He just screams every time he hits the NOS.
And then when you go to the Universal ride, man, to ride the Fast and the Furious on the tram, you see him going around with the CGI and stuff. That'd be great, man. That'd be funny. Here's one that I went with. I went with the same thing you did. Here's one that the movie was great and there wasn't anything wrong with this actor, but I would have loved to see Nick Cage in this role. The movie Split. You replace him with James McAvoy. So you get Nick Cage and you have him playing these different multiple personalities. Yes, him in a dress. Oh my God, Nick Cage in a dress.
But each personality is a character that he's played in the movie.
Yeah. Tell me you wouldn't watch that, man. I want a trilogy of that movie.
And now I'm just imagining him because we just watched that Con Air. It's like, put the bunny back in the box, and the girl's like,
yeah.
Well, then we have to turn Bruce Willis into John Travolta. Then
that'd be good.
Have no choice.
Yeah, he'd have no choice to do it, which he could do. He could easily play that character. You know what I mean? He has it in him, man. But man, he would have been good in Split. He would have been good in Split because he even has when he's the Beast and he's like raging, like dude, that's Nick Cage.
The Rage Cage.
The Rage Cage. There you go. Got all these puns today. I love it. The Rage Cage because it's the age of Cage.
Yeah.
All right.
Honestly, I would watch him in any of these three. That we said.
Yeah.
I feel it might not be a great movie, but you will be entertained.
Yeah, I thought about casting him in American Werewolf in London as like the main guy because like him doing like a werewolf transformation would be so good, man.
Have you ever seen Ghost Rider: Spirit of Vengeance?
That's the sequel one, right?
That's the sequel.
No, I didn't see the sequel. I saw the first one.
Oh man, not a good movie, but the cageisms. There's a scene where like he's trying to hold back the transformation of turning into Ghost Rider, and the camera like zooms in on his face, and he's just like, the claws, like the clawing, the gates. So imagine him just scraping his skin off his body, and he's turned into a werewolf.
I am not gonna watch the movie, but I will YouTube that scene.
I will as well. Man. Okay, so
Idris Elba's in that movie too.
Is he?
Yeah.
Would you guys wanted to have seen him in that Superman movie with Tim Burton directing?
Yes, 1,000 times yes. I think it would have been a train wreck. I'm gonna be honest. That was the age of Tim Burton too. But I remember being a kid and hearing that, I was like, I don't know about this one.
I don't see how it could have been good. Like, but it would have been hilarious for us to watch. But I don't see how it could have been good in any way. Because like you saw him in the suit, right? Like he had his Nick Cage long Con Air hair. Like this looks. You have a balding Superman. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? Oh man, no,
that's rough.
Yes. All right. Let's hit him with what's on the queue. What is on the Nick Cage queue?
We've talked about so many movies. I'm gonna have to go with, might as well see what he won an award for. Is Leaving Las Vegas. Again, you have to be in a specific mood to watch this. It is a downer movie. This isn't a joyful movie at all. But it's something that worked with his style.
It's definitely a good one. You could see why he was so respected at that time by Hollywood. I feel like now it's almost like Hollywood is starting to get it, right? Because we've loved Face Off and we love the Cageisms and like his acting. It feels like Hollywood didn't quite get it, and they were just kind of putting him because he was still getting numbers. But for that movie, you see the respectability factor of it. You see why his acting could be really, really, really good.
I'm gonna say, if you're gonna watch Renfield, do so. But before you watch Renfield, watch Vampire's Kiss, so you can truly appreciate who he is now.
Yes. Yeah. He ate a real roach on that movie, by the way.
Yeah.
That's gross. I'm gonna go with Con Air. Con Air is such a fun watch. I used to watch that so many times when I was younger with me and my friends, and it's so ridiculous. It's so over the top. It's it has a good Steve Buscemi. Steve Buscemi's good in that movie. Yeah. Cyrus the Virus, like you have a good John Malkovich in it that plays a great villain. It's just, it has so many good actors. I want to have Dave Chappelle in it too, right?
Yeah.
He was in that one.
And Bubba from Forrest Gump.
Exactly, man. A lot of good actors in this movie, but it's so over the top. It's like his Die Hard kind of, but like on a plane, or Speed on a plane, essentially kind of ish thing. But it's good, and I love Steve Buscemi in it. You know, they even have like the Frankenstein moment where he's sitting there singing to a little girl. You know, he's sitting there having tea with a girl. Watch Con Air, great movie. But other than that, thank you for watching another episode of Not a Strong Start. Like, comment, share, all that goodness on our YouTube channel, Not a Strong Start. You can listen to us anywhere you listen to your podcast. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter, Not a Strong Start. I'm your host, Not the Bees. You can follow me at King_Sangre.
I am not your host. In the name of Zeus's butthole. You can find me at This Is Mi Nombre on
What a
Instagram.
great quote. Great quote.
And I can suck on a peach for days. You can follow me at Nicolopolis.